Well, hello everybody. Brian Salter here, and due to popular request, it's time to tell a story. So, gonna be a couple stories. Um, One will be what I did to a car wash when I was 16 years old. I think you'll find that quite amusing. And the other will be um, an engine building story that you'll find uh, devastating. Could happen to anybody, and I thought I'd share it with you. So, a lot of times we, as human beings, we sit back and we see those that have lots of money. For example, um, Hollywood people. Uh, we always wonder what's their life like. What is it like to be a Jimmy Johnson or a Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt? What's it like to be The Rock or Clint Eastwood, or those guys, those type of people that are very financially well off, and so we always wonder what it would be like to have that kind of money. And I don't know where I was going with that, so let's just move on to the other story. Yeah, it was really good, but I forgot what it was. All right, so the first story, the car wash story. When I was 16 years old, I was dating this girl, and now she's my wife. So, as you can imagine, we've been together a very long time. My dad did heating and air conditioning. He was a state certified contractor, went to North Carolina State University, and got his license contract and all that, contract license and all that. Well, he had this little truck, because he had a couple trucks. It was a Nissan hardbody, and I think it was a 1986 model, and it was a dually, Nissan dually truck with a 3-liter V6, and it was low to the ground. It wasn't high. Low to the ground, had a big one of those Reading tool beds on it. I guess that's how you say that. Is it Reading? Reading? I don't know. Looks like reading, but who knows? But it had a humongous ladder rack on it. And the ladder rack extended way over the hood. Well, a lot of times on job sites, was because I helped him, obviously, when I was younger, and we'd go out to job sites, and it would be brand new sites. So in North Carolina, where we were at the time, there's a lot of red clay, red mud. Sticks to everything, stains your clothes, especially white clothes. And the truck was really muddy. And I had taken my wife Jody home. In fact, it was on a Wednesday night, if I ain't mistaken, and we went to a church service on Wednesday night. And so I dropped her off at home and proceeded to go back to my house. And I said, well, I'll clean the truck up for Dad and put some gas in it while I've got the truck. So we had this gas station where I was, and it was called Gant, G-A-N-T. And I pulled in there and I got some fuel, and I looked across there, and there was the car wash. I said, oh, cool. By the way, curious with me, because she had shots yesterday, and she is pitiful. So she's in a lot of tender pain. So bless her heart. She needs paw right now. So anyways, I got fuel, and I looked across the way there, and I saw the car wash. I thought, well, yeah, I'll go ahead and clean it up, for Dad, and like any good son would do. And I pull up to there, and back then car washes wasn't $25 like they are now. It's highway robbery. The car wash was probably $1.75 if I remember right, $1.50, $1.75, and it done a good job. It was kind of the big roller brushes that scratched your paint real good, you know, one of them kind. So I got up there and it had this big sign, and it said, "No vans, no RVs, and something else." I thought, oh, cool, I'm good. I got a little dually lowrider Nissan truck, you know, work truck. I should be good. All right, well, we'll run it through there. We didn't have $20 in our pockets back then. You had $2 in your pocket if you had spare change. So I had a couple dollars and $1.75, sure. So I put $1.75 in there and I proceeded to drive in the car wash, and the light came on and said stop. I said, great, awesome. I stopped. Here comes this big brush, you know, big wide, probably 8 foot wide long brush. I don't know, 4 foot around, I don't know. Here comes all the soap spraying, and it starts on my front bumper, and this brush comes, this brush starts up the hood of the truck, gets to my windshield, starts scrubbing the windshield, and it got about halfway, 3/4 way up the windshield, and all of a sudden, this big pop noise. Pow! And I looked, and the front windshield was busted all the way across. And then the cab started caving in on me, coming down at me like this. Now, I'm 16 years old, and we were raised different than kids are now. So I was, you know, like I said, I was a fighter type of dude. Well, I said, I'm not going to die in this car wash. So I floored this truck with the car wash caving in the cab of the truck. And lo and behold, guys, I jerked the entire car wash out into the Gantt parking lot, frame and all. The entire roller car wash was in the Gantt parking lot, and the wires were sparking, and the water was shooting out of the walls and pipes. And you talk about freaking out. I said, I am not going to die in this car wash. And that little dually pickup truck yanked that entire frame car wash. Broke the bolts, jerked it all out into the Gantt parking lot. So now you got all this electrical fireworks behind me. You have water shooting out of the pipes, and then, you know, a 25-foot long car wash frame sitting in the middle of this gas station parking lot. And my daddy's truck is totaled. The whole cab is caved in. It probably caved in, I'm going to say, a foot. The doors were jammed. I couldn't get out, so I had to kick the window out to get out of the truck. And again, the brush is now jammed between my ladder rack and the cab, because the sign didn't say no trucks with ladder racks. Yeah, don't carry a truck with ladder rack through a car wash with the brushes on it. Not a good idea. It got hung between the ladder rack and the cab. And of course, when I floored it and jerked that whole thing out in the parking lot, the pressure of the truck yanking the car wash caved it in even worse. So now my doors, you know, they're like this, because the whole cab is caved in and it's wedged up in my truck. And I'm thinking, oh my God. I finally get out of the truck. Everybody in the parking lot is looking at me like, what in the world? And of course, back then, you know, you didn't have cell phones, and people were helpful. And people around, hey man, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I gotta call my dad. I gotta use the phone. And we had pay phones, you know, so they're like, well, why did you drive a truck through there? I'm like, I don't know, man. It didn't say you couldn't put a ladder rack through there. 16-year-old, you know. So I go into the gas station. I said, sir, I broke your car wash. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But, you know, yeah, it's out in the parking lot. And you can just look around the door there and you'll see it, because my truck's attached to it. So he let me behind the counter, and we had the little rotary dial phone, and I called Dad. I said, Dad, I need you to come to the Gantt. Why, son? I said, Dad, just please get out here, please. And he didn't ask no questions. He's like, all right, I'll be there in a second. Of course, it wasn't a second. He's probably 20 minutes from me. So my dad gets in the other car and he drives to the Gant where I was. And nobody called the law or anything. And Dad pulls in the parking lot. And this is what he tells me. He says, when I saw that truck attached to that car wash, he said, I started laughing so hard I couldn't hardly contain myself. So just to tell you what kind of dad I had, he started laughing, which immediately put me at ease. And then I started laughing. And then we got to asking, what in the world was I thinking when I took that 86 Nissan truck to that car wash with a ladder rack on it? You know, I don't know what I was thinking, but obviously I wasn't. So, moral of the story is, and this was the weird thing, and this is also how times have changed. The Gant company paid to have my truck fixed. We didn't sue them. We didn't take them to court. I mean, that was me. That was my fault. And we called and said, sir, I'm sorry. I did something really stupid, and I drove through there with this truck. And I said, I read the sign, and because I know you're going to ask me why I did that. I read the sign. It did not register. When it said no vans, no RVs, it did not register about the ladder rack. And I said, I apologize. It was my fault. And I was just hoping and praying that he wasn't going to sue me and my parents. They were so nice. And so thank you, Gant. I appreciate that, the way you treated us. And I could tell you a lot more stories about how people were back then compared to now. They let boys be boys. And, they realized that people back then realized that, you're going to do things, you're going to make mistakes, especially when it comes to cars and stuff. They didn't try to throw you under the jail and permanently label you as a psychopath because you spun the tires and, the whole nine. You know how people are these days. Lost their brain today. They were so nice to us. And they paid to have our truck fixed. So he said, will you take it wherever you want to, and I'll pay the bill. I was like, wow, man. So we had this old man up the road from us. And we just did it out of the kindness of our heart to give him something to do. His name was Mr. Walker. And so we said, hey, Mr. Walker, can you fix this truck for us? And he's like, yeah, man. So we dropped the truck off with him. And he hammered that thing out and torched it and beat it. And guys, it was not very good. The windshield wouldn't even hardly seal back when he was done, But it is what it is. And you know what he charged us to do all of that work? 2 doors, pulling the cab out with chains and hydraulics, putting the windshield in that wasn't even sealing anymore because the thing was wavy. $2,000 for all of that. Parts and labor, and that included the windshield. I mean, that's what things were back then. So, different times. But, yeah, I have lots of stories about me and cars that I done some things that was just like, wow, where was my brain? So, anyways, that's that story. Now, I have an engine story I'd like to tell you about. I had an apprenticeship back in the day, early 2000s, and we had this 4,000-hour apprenticeship that we offered people, people that we chose, and they had to have the potential and everything. They had to have everything mentally, physically, life in order to obtain this apprenticeship, and we gave them a gold leaf diploma that they completed a 4,000-hour engine machining, race engine building apprenticeship. And so I had some people that went through that with me, and in particular, this one guy done really well. We were good friends. And so he worked with me a few years, and another company stole him from me, and I'll just put it like that. No hard feelings. The guy had a wife and a couple of kids, and they offered him a lot more money. So he explained it to me, and I was like, yeah, man, I understand, dude. You're going to better yourself. But I said, just do me a favor. Don't tell them anything we're doing over here, because that would just betray me like you wouldn't believe. And he gave me his word he wouldn't. And even if he did, I mean, there was nothing I could do, but just out of respect, you know. So I can tell you he didn't. I'll tell you how that came about. So he went to work for them, and he was probably gone a couple years. And like I said, I was doing a lot of the NASCAR 18-degree stuff that they were now putting in the Wheeling Modifieds. And, you know, like I said, we were one of the top people in that category. Well, the guy he went to work for, they had a couple of those teams as well. And they only had one person that did those engines. So they're a whole different animal, y'all. You don't realize the time and precision in an engine like that. Like we were making, I think they were making 625 out of a 358 cubic inch. It's 12 to 1. That's 12 to 1 on gasoline. And you have to run a 390 CFM carburetor. And they were making like 625. So not bad, not a bad engine, not for sure. And the guy had passed away. And so this friend that worked for me, trained under me, and then went to work for them a few years later, he's like, well, hey, you know, let's call Brian and see if he can help us out. Because they didn't have anybody that could do them. So they did. They gave me a call, and I said, man, well, I had like 8 or so at the time, and I was fairly caught up with those. We had other things to do, but I said, yeah, I'll help you. I'll be pulling double duty. And they were like an hour from my shop. And so every morning I got super early to help him out, just out of the goodness of my heart. And he also made it very financially worth my while. So I drove up there, and I looked at their whole deal, and I said, you know, hey, I'm not trying to change your product or anything, because obviously we're competitors. Literally, his engine runs against mine. But just, I just can't help it. If I'm on your team, I'm on your team, and I'm committed. If I'm not on your team, I'm your worst nightmare. All right? And that's how I look at things. Not like going to burn your house down or nothing, but competitively, I want to win. And I want to, whoever's team I'm on, I want to win. But, you know, there's also a humanity side, and I'm like, you know, I see some things I can help you improve, but, you know, if you don't want to change anything, we won't change nothing. He's like, well, here's the problem. He says, that guy done all the valve jobs. I don't know what he used. I have no idea. Because their other side of the business was they did a ton of NASCAR late model engines, which is a 500 CFM two-barrel. Steel head, flat top piston deal, flat tappet cam. And that was their big thing. That was their bread and butter. They had a lot of those. And they won a lot of races in that too. So, get to that in a minute. I said, okay. So I looked it over, and I looked at their dyno sheets from all the other prior dynos, and I went ahead and did put my valve job in it, which was a lot better. And I did my piston rings different. Those guys were blobbing their pistons in oil for assembly, and I just have never been in with that. I think that is the worst thing in the world to do. You do not want oil in your rings. That's the whole reason you have rings. So I have my own process for how I lubricate my rings. And it ain't blobbing them in engine oil, I can tell you that. So anyways, I did the engine for him, and it actually picked up 15 horsepower just from my little things, nuances I do, and wound up winning the customer over. I'm sorry, man. I had nothing to do with this, but the guy told me, he's like, hey, I had Salter come up here and do this because, you know, the other man had passed away. And to be truthful, he told me, he says, look, it's fine because I don't want to be in that side of the house anymore. I don't want to be doing the wheeling stuff anymore because I just don't have anybody to do them, and they're so labor intensive. I can do these a lot faster, make more money. I said, cool. So I actually won the customer over from that job. So that was kind of cool. I would have never stole the guy. No way. I would not. I don't undercut people unless they're just really bad, terrible people, and and they're shafting people, then I'll tell on them. So we wanted to go over the last dyno that they had done was 626, and then when we finished up, it was I don't remember if it's 637, almost 640 horsepower, and that's still using his camshaft, his rocker ratio. I did put a better spring and push rod in it than what they had. They were still running a 5/16 on the intake, and I said, dude, you're asking for absolute no, that's gone. So I opened up some stuff and we put a 135 3/8 in it, and a spring that I've been using, PSI spring. So, and then our valve job, and I did some intake work. I polished it in some areas and roughed it in other areas, and it picked up almost to 640 horsepower, so quite a gain. And the very first night he showed up with it, he won the race with it. So we were real happy with that. Even, yeah, it was just a good deal. So all that was finished up, and here comes the other part. They said, hey, we got like, I don't know, 15 more late models to do. Is there any way you can stay and help us finish some of those up? I said, sure. So once again, I saw things that I would improve on, and they didn't want me to change anything, which, you know, understandable. So I built a bunch of, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 late models for him, until I got to this last one I'm about to tell you about. So I said, well, hey, let me do what I want to do to this engine. I'll use your parts, I'll use your cam, I'll use everything that's yours, but let me do some things differently, and let's see how it goes. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. All right, cool. So just to put it in perspective, this is a flat top engine with 2 valve reliefs. It's a 350 engine. It is a 348 stroke crank, and believe me, NASCAR modified, not NASCAR late models. These are NASCAR technicians that tech these engines. They have tech tools for everything. They have roller wheels for the heads. They check the short turn, guys. They check these motors with a fine tooth comb, and the little places I try to get advantages of, which we do, it is difficult, man. And so if you can get an advantage on a competitor in that class of racing, you have done something. So you have to mandate a 500 CFM 2-barrel, which they check with a fine-tooth comb. They have every gauge imaginable, from the top, from the bottom, from the inside. They even check the whole diameter going to the booster. I mean, just over the top with these checks. And flat tappet camshafts, which you could run any of that you wanted to. And we generally turned about, most of those engines that I always did was between 72 and 7,500 on the straightaway, probably closer to 75. So you had engines out there that where the camshafts ranged from, some of them I saw 240s at 50 all the way up to 270 at 50 on the cam grind. And he said, well, that's a huge cam. Well, no, it's not really, because the overall duration was small. So these were very aggressive camshafts to open the valve very fast, very early. But as far as like in the realm of 360-degree circle, they were still, you know, 280 advertised duration, 285, stuff like that. There was nothing over 300. So you just didn't have the compression. Besides, you have a very a very small carburetor with the 500 CFM. So you can have reversion like you've never seen if you ain't careful with your camshaft. So camshafts are very, very important on restricted applications, which is my specialty a lot of times. So I did my thing. I did, you know, again, these people, they blobbed oil on their rings, and they just did things differently. Not that it was wrong, it was just different. Their valve jobs were different than mine, so I cut my valve job on it. I degreed the cam in where I wanted to, which in this particular case, I put it in on 108 and a half. I tried to get 109, I couldn't get there, because these are long tracks. These were half-mile, 5/8 mile tracks, not little tight, and you needed some good mid-range. So all these guys running 100, 102s, thinking that's the key. The guys that are beating you ain't running that lobe separations that tight. I can tell you right now. Anyhows, so I did it my way, and the 423, 424 is what they would see on this dyno, because remember, dynos are different. With that package, they're seeing 425 horse on average. So we put the engine I built up on the dyno, guys, and here's the bad part. The first 3 pulls on the ring seated in, these are all wet sump motors, you know. The ring seated in was in the low 430s, so already 10 better than what they had done. Using his parts, just my valve job and little twerks and things that I do. Went to make a 4th pull, and it saw 441, and I heard a crackling. So I stopped. Pull the throttle back, shut it down, go out there, and what in the world was that? A little crackling, breaking up bad. I pull the spark plugs out, and the spark plugs on numbers 6 and 8, which on the Chevrolet is the right side back 2 cylinders. Spark plugs were kind of, ground electrodes were, you know, we used the little cutaways, but there was damage in them. There was some damage to the plugs. I thought, oh no, what's happened? And in my pulling double duty between my shop and their shop, and just making money and all that kind of thing, I goofed. Here is a piston that I just happen to have, and I want you to see the valve pocket. So this would be representative of piston, I think, number 6. Yeah, because the exhaust valve would be, you know, you got in the Chevrolet, you got the 2 center exhaust valves. And then number 8 piston would be the opposite of this. You would have an intake here, exhaust out to the outside, and I put the wrong pistons on the wrong rods. I put the number 6 piston on the number 8 rod, and number 8 piston on the number 6 rod, because they're free floating stuff. And guess what happened? As you can imagine, now it wasn't a piston like this. This is a very small, this is a 3700, and the intake and exhaust are not on the same plane. For cast iron 23 degree, your intake and exhaust you would put them on the same plane. But when we got up to around 7,000, the intake valves hit. And obviously bent the valves, and the thing still made 440 horsepower with 2 bent intake valves. So obviously we took the thing apart and placed the valves. It didn't hurt nothing other than that. We went ahead and put lifters and push rods. No, we didn't put lifters. We went ahead and put, or did we? I don't remember. We replaced everything that could have been hurt. Rocker arms were replaced because we didn't want them, could have been internally cracked, and we didn't want that. Push rods were replaced just from the shock. You can think something's not hurt, but I x-ray connecting rods, guys. And I'll have brand new Carrillos, well, not brand new, but say a Carrillo might run 3 or 4 seasons. And you know, that's the best rod in the world for what we're doing. And I'll send it and get it x-rayed, and they'll call me back and say, hey, you got 2 with internal hairline cracks. Not cracked on the outside, and you can't find it with a MagnaFlux. Nope. But it shows up on an x-ray. And I'm not risking 9,000 RPM engine with a rod that comes apart, and there's $50,000 gone. So we x-ray that stuff. So I didn't want to take a risk. We put rods and pistons in those 2 holes. And I paid for all this out of the goodness. I said, man, I'm sorry. I cannot believe this happened. I did it. I bought the stuff. I had to balance the rods to the old rod. So whatever number 6 weighed, I had to make the new rod weigh that, because rods are made in batches, if you didn't know that. When you make a connecting rod batch, that whole batch is done in a process. And that means that that batch of rods will weigh real close to the same. But when we make another batch of rods, they may be 10 grams different. you know, just to show you the difference. So if you buy a rod that's been made at a different time in a different batch, you can bet the balance will not be correct, and you will have to balance that rod, big and little end. So we got all that done. Pistons, again, pistons made in batches as well. So we made the pistons weigh the same, and that way we didn't have to redo the crank. And it didn't knock a hole in the piston, it didn't break the valve, so it didn't hit that hard. It was just, you know, these guys, before you can finish first, you must first finish, and they depend on this engine. And the machine shop, the engine shop, they depend on their engine lasting, and that's something you have to take to heart. So if you sell somebody a $30,000 late model engine, 25,000 somewhere in there, it was 25 to 30, I don't remember. You know, they expect it to last all year. And like in the wheeling engines, the NASCAR 18 degree stuff, we'll put between, if you got 17 or 18 races, we'll put at least 3 sets of valve springs on in 18 races. And it don't matter the valve job I did, because by the time they get the head back, everything's coated titanium, beryllium copper seats, or whatever blend of copper. The valve job is moved to the point to where you're turning 8,800, 8,900 qualifying. You're running the engine for 2 hours a race, plus any practicing you do. That valve job is no longer the same valve job I put in it, so I wouldn't worry about them copying it. By the time they got the head back, you know, the valve job it needs a new one for sure. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. Anyhow, yep, I put the pistons in backwards, guys. So everybody makes mistakes. It's what you do with those mistakes that, you know, tells people your character. And my dad told me, he said, son, the only thing you have in life is your last name. And you make sure that people, when they hear your last name, that they have nothing bad to say about it. And he ain't talking about, and he was not talking about kissing people's butt. He was not talking about being a yes man, because I don't care, and he didn't care either, trust me, if people hated my guts, as long as the reason was right. If they hate me because I love America, then they can hate away. If they hate me because I love Jesus, they can hate away. If they hate me because I'm a family man, they can hate away. If they hate me because I win and love to win and want to win, they can hate away. But as long as they ain't hate me because I'm cheating people or stealing or lying or taking people's money and not giving them a product, you know, as long as they don't hate me because of those reasons, I don't care. So love me or hate me, I want to do people right. I want to treat people right. So I made a mistake, man, and it was a costly one. I don't know, it was probably like $1,500 what I spent out of my own pocket, just because I just felt obligated to do that. He didn't make me do that or ask me to do that. It was just, you know, yeah, I just couldn't do that to the guy. He just lost his main engine builder that had all the skill and knowledge as far as, you know. And then the guy had passed away, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to pay. I got it, man. So I pulled out the card and said, here, let's order what we need. And I said, don't take any chances. So we ordered rods and pistons and all the stuff for those 2 cylinders. And we put it back together, and like I said, it was in the 440s, which was easily 15 better than theirs. And you know, that's what I come to do. I works very, very hard. I don't make more power because anybody's name. You don't make more power because somebody showed up with a black shirt on that says Salter on it. That don't give you more power. What gives you more power is hard work and dedication. And that is something that everybody who knows me knows that that's what I do. In fact, you know, I'll say this because I had a friend call me yesterday. He goes, man, please don't stress yourself out. I know you're doing all this stuff. You got all this going on. And guys, by the way, I've been asked to be a part of it's not happened yet, but there's some cool stuff going on, man. I'm just so excited about it. Oh, I can't believe I'm just excited. And I really hope this one thing comes true. Man, dude, that's just so cool. I can't even tell you. I'm sorry I can't tell you. But hey, We got a bunch of snow down here on the Outer Banks, off here in the island. We got snow drifts of probably 18 inches. Now, we didn't get 18 inches of snow. We got drifts of it because the wind's blowing like, I don't know, man, 25 mile an hour. It's cold. Everybody's wanting to go duck hunting today, and I may. I probably won't. It's too cold. It's snowing right now. It's blowing crazy. Can't get any parts. Oh, man. I was hoping today I could sit in here and build and do stuff, and I'm so behind on parts. I got cams and nitride. I got cams and no blocks. I got blocks and no cams. I got blocks and no cranks. Oh, man, I just, very frustrating time in the world because it was not like this 5 years ago. Nope. There was a time 5 years ago, pre-COVID, I called the boys up. I got stuff within a week to my door. And yes, money moved the world. If I said, hey, I need this expedited, what's it going to cost me? Well, heck, that's $800 more. I don't care. Here you go. And, get a crank in a week and 2 weeks, or get a cam in my door in 4 days. These are things that happened prior to COVID. Yeah, I mean, we can, Comp Cams is treating me awesome right now. I'm so grateful for how that's going, because there for a while it got kind of sketchy, man. Now they have just really picked it up, and they're shipping me stuff fast, custom stuff. Everything's looking good, checking good. Anyways, guys, I'm rambling. Listen, thank you. I love America. It's a great day to be an American. I'm so hopeful of where we're going. And if you're a young person, find an old person who knows America's history, the real history, not the tainted history, and learn what your forefathers went through to give you the ability to look at these phones and look at these computers, and then go out there, get your nose out of that thing, and learn a skill that no one can take away from you. The old saying is, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Let that sink in. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. And they truly do. But you suck it up and you drive on, knowing that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Thank God for America. All right? And like, share, and subscribe. And if you do nothing else before you die, buy a t-shirt and a hat. Thank you, guys. See you soon. We got a lot of builds to video. Say a prayer for Curious. You don't feel good. All right. Thank y'all. Bye.